I never wanted a house that stood out. I wanted one that belonged. A place tucked so neatly into the trees that it felt like it grew there, like it knew the wind and the slope of the earth better than I did. So I built it myself, a quiet, low-slung cabin just above the southern curve of Easton Lake, powered by solar, fed by rain, shaded by old pine that had seen more winters than I had birthdays. No road signs, no mailbox. You had to know it was there. And that was the point. By the time I hammered in the last nail, everything was legal, stamped, inspected twice. I worked hand in hand with the county's environmental team to make sure I wasn't just building a home, I was preserving a shoreline. See, what the HOA across the lake didn't realize was that my little lot wasn't all I owned. Through a family trust quietly maintained for decades, I held title to almost the entire southern shore. My grandfather started it, parcel by parcel, keeping it wild, unspoiled. The fences were natural, more for deer than people. That's how he wanted it. That's how I kept it. A few weeks after I finished the build, I found an old cedar box buried in the back of the shed. Inside were his survey maps, yellowed and curling at the edges, still smelling like tobacco and rain. One map caught my eye. A boundary line he'd drawn in thick black ink, running right through what is now Lake Haven Estates. And scribbled across the bottom, private. Do not alter. Family protected since '72. I smiled. Felt like I could hear his voice saying, "Don't let him take it, son." 3 days later, I got a letter. Cream envelope, gold seal, Lake Haven Estates Property Association. It sounded polite. Inside was a single page, signed by a woman named Claire Henley, president of the HOA. The tone? Civilized, but with that sugary poison that makes your teeth ache. She wrote that the board had unanimously resolved to request I remove the residential obstruction on Parcel 14B to restore communal access to the lake for the benefit of the neighborhood. Then, as if this was just a matter of tidying up, she added, "We are prepared to offer financial compensation in the amount of $85,000 for relocation expenses." They wanted me to demolish my HOA on my land for their lake access. I laughed. I actually laughed. Then I wrote back one sentence. "This is private land. I do not consent to any easement or access." Denied. Mailed it certified. Thought that'd be the end. But of course it wasn't. A week later, I find a laminated sign nailed into the cedar post along my trail. Lake Haven Community Access, all residents welcome. In green and gold, just like their letterhead. I ripped it down. Next morning, 2 new ones. One on the trail, one screwed into a tree. Someone even left a branded trash bin that said, "HOA provided, keep our lake clean." They were staking claims like colonizers, except I had trail cams. And that's how I got them. Clear as day, Claire Henley herself, sun visor on, striding down my path like she was unveiling a park. Clipboard in hand, waving to a small group of neighbors behind her. I listened to the audio. "This land, it's communal," she said. "That house, temporary structure. We're just waiting on some paperwork." I stared at the footage. Not in shock, I'd already burned through that. But because I recognized one face. Ben Marlowe, HOA board member, maybe 30, always looked guilty at the grocery store. He wasn't smiling. He looked cornered. I emailed him. "I saw you at the lake. Want to talk?" 2 hours later, not over email. "Meet me at Creekside Cafe. Noon." He looked nervous, folded into the corner booth, barely touched his coffee. Finally, he said, "They know it's not their land. It came up 2 years ago during a boundary review. Your trust flagged the claim. Claire buried it." He slid me a thumb drive. "Board call. You'll want to hear it." I asked him why. He didn't blink. "Because they're not just wrong. They're lying. And using us to do it." That night, someone left a dead fish on my porch. No note. Just the fish gutted and stuffed with a flyer for the HOA's lake picnic. It wasn't just pettiness, Anna Maria, it was a warning. So I doubled down. I pulled every deed, zoning file, and water rights record from the past 40 years. Found a crack, then a canyon. Turns out Lake Haven Estates was assembled by a developer named Randall Berkey, a guy my granddad called a grinning fraud with a stamp. Burke had carved and flipped the parcels fast, but he never bought the shoreline. It stayed in our family trust, a long crescent of land wrapping right beneath their pool house and kayak launch. I scanned the maps, sent everything to my lawyer, and waited. Didn't take long. White truck shows up, county inspectors. We got a report about shoreline contamination, possible wetland violations. I showed them the native grasses, the filtration system, the erosion mats I installed myself. One inspector scratched his head, said, "Honestly, this is textbook." They filed it as a false report. Trail cam caught it again, Claire, whispering to a flashlight-wielding man. "He's bluffing. Just look official. The paperwork doesn't matter if we show presence." Ben sent me another fill-in email from Claire titled, "Soft Pressure Strategy." Her instructions? Report anything. File noise complaints. Create visual clutter claims. Make me feel isolated. And then, they crossed the line. A backhoe rolled onto my trail at dawn. No permits. Just 3 men in vests and a fake HOA document claiming they were clearing space for community shoreline access. I stormed out in sweatpants, heart pounding. They pointed to a mock-up stamped by some made-up subcommittee. Claire stood 50 feet away, arms folded, watching like a queen at a ribbon cutting. "You forged documents," I said, shaking. Her voice didn't flinch. "This is disputed land. We're asserting rights under community historical access. You invented that doctrine last month. Call your lawyer," she smiled. "You've got ours on file." But she'd overplayed her hand. That night, Ben gave me the new KA video of a Zoom call. Claire saying, on record, "If he won't comply, we break him. Legal. Psychological. Shame. Whatever works." So I walked into my attorney's office the next morning, dropped 2 binders and 2 hard drives on his desk, and said, "We're suing. I want every one of them held accountable." By the time we got to court, the local news had caught wind. Headlines read, "HOA wants house demolished. But is it even their land?" Claire walked in like she owned the place. Still wore her visor in court. My lawyer, Erica Grant, didn't blink, laid out deed after deed, video after video. We played the clip of Claire's Zoom call. The courtroom went silent. Ben took the stand, testified that the title search had been deliberately hidden, that the construction orders were faked, that no vote was ever held. Claire snapped, "You little traitor. You don't understand." The judge slammed the gavel. And then Erica played the final two versions of the same permit. One real, one forged. Claire had submitted the fake one under someone else's name. The signature didn't match. The judge stared at it. Then he delivered the verdict. Criminal trespass. Document fraud. HOA leadership dissolved. $1.2 million in damages. Claire was handcuffed in court. The other board members were banned from future HOAs. And just like that, the shoreline was quiet again. But the story didn't end there. I spent the next few weeks restoring the land. Ben helped. So did a few volunteers who'd heard what happened. The county eventually declared the shoreline an official ecological preserve. University students came to study the birds. Neighbors dropped by not to argue, but to apologize. One old man brought me a pie. A teenager gave me a watercolor painting of the lake titled, "Still Belongs to Nature." And then one day, I saw her, Claire, in a county vest, picking up trash as part of her restitution. She didn't look at me. I didn't call her out. I just walked over, held out a shovel, and said, "It was never really mine either. We're just borrowing it. Might as well leave it better than we found it." She took the shovel. That was enough. Now there's a sign on the trailhead, Easton Preserve. Visitors by permit. Maintained by the community. Protected since 1972. And under it, a bronze plaque reads, "Preserved by the actions of Jonah Ridgway, 2024. I didn't ask for it, but I stood there a long time when I saw it. and I finally felt like I wasn't defending my land anymore, I was just living on it. If you've ever dealt with a power-hungry HOA, or seen your community turned into a battleground over land, and lies, drop your thoughts in the comments. Who was right? Who went too far? And where do we draw the line between community rights and personal freedom? Let's talk.